Christine Brennan, a veteran journalist with decades of experience, releases a new book titled On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. A celebration of Clark's impact on the game, sure. A cultural touchpoint, yes. But above all, this book just became a ticking time bomb inside the WNBA. Why? Because Brennan did something apparently unforgivable. She told the truth. Now, this Christine Brennan book, it's called On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. It is causing such a crazy stir amongst fans. It's actually selling out. A lot of people have ordered the book because there is a lot of juicy gossip, especially regarding interactions between Christine Brennan herself, the journalist. She is a journalist who was covering the WNBA, and she was the journalist who asked Dijonai Carrington about the eye poke, and the WNBPA, the Players Association, just basically ripped her a new one. They called her out. They wrote a whole message on behalf of the 144, which is 144 players. And yeah, they basically said that she was absolutely ridiculous and that she was trapping Dijonai into these questions and it's not real journalism. In this case, that truth includes a detailed eyewitness account, corroborated by 2 other reporters, of Dijonai Carrington verbally confronting journalists behind a curtain during the 2024 playoffs. The crime? Discussing Nalissa Smith's removal from the Fever's starting lineup. Something that actually happened on the court. According to Brennan's book, Carrington stormed into a private conversation between reporters Christine Brennan, Scott Agnes, and Chloe Peterson and accused them of talking negatively about her partner, Nalissa Smith. She didn't calmly inquire. She allegedly burst in and shouted, "Why are you talking sow about Nalissa?" Let's be clear, the journalists weren't gossiping. They were doing their jobs, discussing lineups, strategy, and confirmed roster moves. But Carrington heard Smith's name and lost it. Then came the tweet. Defamation of character at this point. Brennan had shared an excerpt from her book detailing the encounter, and instead of engaging with the content, Carrington screamed defamation across social media. But here's the thing. How can you call it defamation when it's not only documented, but also corroborated? Scott Agnes and Chloe Peterson confirmed it. There was even a recording made after the incident to ensure Brennan had backup. But Carrington's response wasn't to deny the event with facts. It was to ignite drama. And Dijonai Carrington overheard them talking and started accusing them of saying she's a bad teammate. So this is the excerpt from her book. So Dijonai comes up to her from behind these curtains and says, "Why are you talking shit about Nalissa?" She blurted out, referring to her partner Nalissa Smith, the Fever forward. The question surprised the 3 of us because no one was saying anything personal or derogatory about Smith. Agnes and Peterson had been discussing a bit of Fever's strategy they had just noticed on the court but had been asked to not divulge publicly. That Smith was going to be replaced in the starting lineup for Game 2 by veteran Temi Fegbenle. "You're saying she's a bad teammate," Carrington yelled. Then she looked specifically at me. "I walked past and I heard you're talking shit about Nalissa. It was out of your mouth." That's from Dijonai. That wasn't the end of it. 30 minutes later, with Agnes, Peterson and me now back on the court waiting to interview the players, Smith walked by, then came back towards the court. Moments later, on her cell phone, with her cell phone pressed to her ear, Carrington had left a voicemail for Smith relating her version of the catering area story. According to a Fever official, Smith strode towards me. "Do you have something to say to me?" she asked. "I'm always happy to talk to you," I replied. She scoffed and walked away. Within minutes, back under the stands in a dark hallway, WNBA Communications Director Sam Tagar was standing with Agnes and me. Smith walked by us looking at me. "What did you say?" Smith asked. "What did you say?" I told her that no one, Agnes, Peterson or I, had said anything negative about her. What followed was even more absurd. The WNBPA, the Players' Union, released an official statement not just condemning Brennan, but accusing her of fueling racism, homophobia, and misogyny. Over what? A follow-up question in a post-game interview. Yes, Brennan also happened to be the journalist who asked Carrington about her infamous eye poke on Caitlin Clark. You remember that play, when Carrington swatted at Clark and appeared to hit her in the face? Brennan asked, "Did you intend to hit her in the eye?" Carrington replied that she didn't even know she hit her. Brennan followed up, "Did you and Marina laugh about it afterward?" A question based on footage showing Carrington and Marina Mabrey smiling shortly after the incident. Suddenly, Brennan wasn't just a journalist, she was an enemy of the league. The WNBPA accused her of trying to bait Carrington, saying her journalism was unethical and intentionally provocative. They demanded USA Today revoke Brennan's credentials. They wrote, "You are not fooling anyone. Let's take a breath. Since when did asking tough professional questions become a punishable offense? Since when did doing your job mean risking your career?" I think that there was a miscommunication with Dijonai thinking, are you trying to entrap me and trick me into saying, yeah, we laughed about it so that I will admit that I knew that I did it. But there's also the other mentality that Christine Brennan maybe thought that somebody had told Dijonai right afterwards what happened. And I mean, obviously she saw, Caitlin kind of holding her eye afterwards. So while she didn't know that she did it in that moment, she might have known later. And then I think it was a miscommunication. And if you see things differently, sure, I get how that was insulting, but I think that without discussing, the nature of the question with Christine Brennan and just going straight to USA Today and calling for her credentials, and if you're a journalist and you get, called out like that, it's a really big deal because your whole livelihood is coming into question. And I do think that because it was centered around Caitlin Clark, it's not Brennan's professionalism that's in question. It's the WNBA's tolerance for transparency. These players want the perks of NBA-level fame, endorsements, highlight reels, brand deals, but without the responsibility that comes with it. The second the media asks something real, they shout bias, racism, defamation. Let's not forget, Carrington's on-court play was the catalyst. The eye poke happened, the laughter happened, the confrontation happened. Brennan just reported it. And let's talk about Dawana Bonner, who joined the drama post-interview by confronting Brennan and saying, "You disrespected my teammate." When Brennan tried to introduce herself, Bonner refused to shake her hand. Repeatedly. This isn't professionalism. It's playground politics. Even the WNBA's own communications department stepped in and told Brennan that her questions weren't inappropriate. They admitted that Carrington should have handled it differently, by going through PR. But that message got buried under all the noise. What's even more telling, the league didn't stand up for Brennan publicly. No official statement, no support, no protection for one of the few journalists who actually cares enough to cover this league consistently. And now, Brennan's book is selling out. People are buying it, not because of some grand scandal, but because they want the truth. They want the raw, unfiltered story. They want to know what's going on behind the curtain of a league that so often paints itself as untouchable. Let's call this what it is, a media reckoning. Brennan held up a mirror, and the WNBA didn't like the reflection. Carrington claims Brennan twisted the story. Fine. Then where's the lawsuit? Why not sue for libel if it's false? But we all know why that's not happening. Because it's not false. Because it's not defamation. It's documentation. The truth hurts. This reaction is just it sounds so different to what I would be used to any sports professional athletic association to be responding to. Now, I personally happen to think that Christine Brennan had her questions kind of set up, so the follow-up question was already in her mind. And I know as somebody who does ask questions myself, I interview many people. Some you're listening to them, but you're also thinking about what your next question will be. And I think what bothered the players and what bothered Dijonai was she had said that she did not do this and she did not mean to do this. And then Christine followed up with the question were you laughing about it afterwards? And I think this is just me personally. And this isn't the first time Carrington has created drama. From on-court aggression to social media wars to now screaming at credentialed reporters, there seems to be a pattern. And instead of accountability, we get outrage. Carrington doesn't want journalism. She wants protection. But real sports coverage isn't about comfort. It's about clarity. You can't demand media attention and then melt down when the coverage isn't flattering. You can't ask for legitimacy and then cry foul when questions get uncomfortable. You want equal treatment? great. Get ready for equal criticism. This is what the NBA deals with daily. LeBron gets slammed. Durant gets grilled. Nobody's safe. And yet, they show up. They answer. They deal. The WNBA, they fold. And that's the tragedy. Because for every player like Caitlin Clark who thrives under the lights, there's someone else begging for the spotlight, but screaming the second it turns critical. So where do we go from here? The WNBA has two paths. It can embrace real journalism, accept the growing pains of mainstream exposure, and allow reporters like Christine Brennan to do what they do best. Or it can continue coddling egos, silencing the press, and pretending that feelings are facts. But here's the truth. Brennan didn't ruin anything. She exposed everything. She showed us how thin-skinned this league can be. How quickly the players' union will abandon principle to protect pride. How willing some athletes are to label every question they don't like as an attack. And she did it without malice, without spin, just facts. So no, this isn't a smear campaign, it's a reality check. The WNBA says it wants to grow. Growth means accountability. Growth means truth. Growth means hearing things you don't want to hear. Brennan's book may have opened wounds, but those wounds were already there, and now the world sees them. Carrington says, defamation. Brennan says, documentation. One of them has the receipts, the other has a Twitter thread. The book is out, the story is told, and no matter how loud the screams get, the facts won't change. The only question left is, can the WNBA handle the truth it claims to be ready for? Because if it can't, maybe it's not the media that needs to adjust.